Happy to welcome the voice of Wolverine to the Derek Diamond Experience, Mr. Cal Dodd. Cal, how are you, sir?
I am wonderful, Derek, and a pleasure to be with you for the second time already in this in my experience with you. Let's not let that happen again, Bob.
I'll, I'll do my best to make sure that it doesn't. I was just telling you, off air before we started. I love your jacket. For those that are listening on the audio version, you've got an X-Men jacket with like the yellow sleeves and the kind of the black body, and it says Logan on it. And you've really embraced being the voice of Wolverine, and you flashed the adamantium claws, and you've been doing a lot of convention appearances. So how has that been, for you interacting with, the various fans that, grew up with the cartoon and maybe those that are introducing their children to the cartoon? How has that experience been for you?
It is without a doubt, Derek. It's one of the, if not the best, one of the most exciting and rewarding experiences in my life. These Comic Cons, and we just started about two years before COVID, so maybe 6 years ago, and it is phenomenal. And the fans are just ridiculously ardent, and their hearts are huge. And I get my heart broken on, and every time I do one, because there's an awful lot of autistic people that love the series, and there are some unbelievable stories that if you want, I can tell you like later on. But it's stunning, and I just can't believe that this was a gig that we did in 1992 to 1997. And it was the first voiceover I had ever done. I was a singer. What I did, I sang jingles, commercials. I had a TV show from 78 to 83. It was syndicated worldwide. We sold it in Vegas. Viacom bought it, whatever the series, but it was on CTV. It was obviously a huge hit in Canada and all over the planet. And it was all singing and actual circus acts. With Billy Van, I don't know if any of your fans know that name, but he was a fantastic. The House of Frightenstein he was in, many things he did. But it was a wonderful children's family program with actual circus acts, clowns and trapeze artists and lions and elephants, the whole ball of wax. And we were, the two of us, it was like a Donnie and Marie Osmond show. And so we had ringmaster outfits. On the pilot, Leslie Nielsen did the pilot with us. And don't call me Shirley. Leslie Nielsen was the actual ringmaster, and we were just two sub ringmasters, so whatever. And he just did the pilot, and then we never saw him again. And so we took over, and that too was wonderful, but it was all singing for me until '92. And they just asked me because then I had done theater, rock operas, actually went to Broadway. My brother was in it as well. And Rory stayed in New York for the rest of his career. And I was Hamlet and Rory was Horatio. And Beverly D'Angelo was in that production. And we did it in Charlottetown, Canada again, Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island for 2 years. And then it went to Broadway. So music was huge and the acting was huge, apparently to the people that were casting for Wolverine, because they'd been looking for a while and they just weren't satisfied. They wanted to get people that weren't voice artists, voiceover guys, girls, whatever, people who had a stage background, TV or whatever, and acting. So to me, again, walking into this interview was like, because none of us, not one of us, Derek, knew who the X-Men were. We hadn't a clue. So we all went into what was called, let me put this down, the audition was called, because it was very secretive, it was called Project X, X-Men. We didn't
Subtle.
put that together until later. Yeah, yes. And I walked into the audition and they said, so you're here to read for Wolverine. That's why we called you. And I said, that's great. Who's Wolverine? And they showed me a picture of him. And I said, okay. Okay. So, and what? Well, he's 5'3", he's tough as nails and has a huge heart, and he's very protects his friends, etc. And I said, okay. And they gave me a line to read here. And I said, who do you hear him sounding like? And they said, Clint Eastwood. And I went, okay. okay, go ahead, make my day. But the line I'm looking at obviously isn't a very quietly spoken line. I said, well, this line would not be. I've never heard Clint actually yell in any of his movies because he's always talking between his teeth. And they said, yeah, but just the gravel that he sort of has. And they said Steve McQueen, and I love that reference because Steve McQueen is one of my favorite actors, and he's like a short gentleman and very quiet and calm, doesn't say much, which is exactly like this character Wolverine. And so I threw into the mix. I threw in Wolfman Jack. Are you familiar with Wolfman Jack? From the 70s, 80s, whatever, 60s, 70s, 80s, Midnight Special and stuff. Which was like Wolfman Jack, baby, the Midnight Special, that thing. So I threw a bit of that in, probably a lot more than I should have. So I said, so who's this line that you gave me? Who's he yelling at? And they said, he's yelling at, and this is great because they're all from LA and New York and they're in Toronto. They're on the other side of the glass. And I said, so who's this? They said, Sabretooth. And I said, in all seriousness, I said, Sabretooth, is this an animal cartoon? Well, they couldn't stop laughing at them. At the same time, they're going like, who called this guy in? Is this I said, well, Sabretooth, a tiger and Sabretooth thing. And I'm Wolverine, which is, as we all know in Canada, especially, is a vicious animal. And they said, no, they're mutants. I said, this just goes from bad to worse. They're mutants. I said, what the hell's a mutant? What are mutants? And they explained, well, they all have their own weird, wonderful, in their minds, abilities to do not really ordinary things. Oh, okay. I said, well, hence the claws that you have. He said, oh, he has claws. He has claws, which I never go anywhere without now on the Comic-Cons. And they said, yes, he has claws. And they're doing what I'm doing right now. Yes, he has claws. They're just, oh, wait till we hear what he's about to do. So I read the line, and it's a famous line that at these Comic-Cons, they asked me if I can do that line, it just came out of this body. And I said the line, and this line was, all right, you egg sucking piece of gutter trash. You always did like pushing around people shorter than you. Well, I'm shorter. Try pushing me. Ow! They all behind the glass kind of went, holy crap. Give them some more lines. And we just talked about it this weekend we were in, there's been so many. For Mary Tyler Moore's show, she throws a hat up in the air. What's that city? Begins with an M.
Minneapolis?
Thank you. It's right there. I just had to pick it up. Minneapolis. And Larry Houston was there, who was our director in the first year and a terrific artist. Said when he remembers that, we just knew as soon as Cal finished his line, it's like, that's him. That's him. But I stopped for another 20 minutes and read all kinds of lines and went home, and they phoned me the next morning. They said, we'd be really pleased if you would be our Wolverine. And I said, okay, I'll check my calendar, whoever Wolverine is. And that's the way it started. Oh yeah, here we go. So hold on. And that was it. And I got it, and away we went.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
It's history. Excuse me.
No worries.
I'm coughing because I literally, from here on in, I believe I told you that. So we started about 3 weeks ago. We had one 3 weeks ago in Minneapolis. We just got home on Tuesday of this week. Can you hear that noise when it comes in like that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, good. So we got home, and this is what, Thursday. We leave tomorrow for Alabama.
Yep, the Alabama Comic-Con.
Yeah, Alabama Comic-Con. We get home on Tuesday again. We leave the following Thursday for Texas. Same time frame till Tuesday. Then we're home on Tuesday and leave again on Thursday for Kentucky. Come home again on the Tuesday. It's usually Tuesday morning, really early, like midnight and 1 o'clock in the morning we get home. And then one day rest, and we're in New York City for 5 days. It's just stupid. And I love, like I told you, I love the Comic-Cons. The people are just so wonderful. And it's just the airports and sitting and waiting and cancel flights and nonsense. It just goes on and on. Those stories are unbelievable. Wow, what you go through with flights.
I was going to say,
And
we could probably do a whole separate podcast on
you
flight
could.
travel nightmares.
Almost. And I don't know, you'd have to correct my language because it would be right off the edge.
Yeah.
It's on, and I see I'm going there. I'm not going to go there. But suffice to say, it was unbelievable what we went through coming back from Connecticut.
Oh boy. I did want to ask you, because you mentioning the constant travel you've been doing, yet when you meet the fans, does it almost like re-energize you in a way? Like, is that what keeps you going?
Oh God, yes. They come to the table, and to a person, every one of them, and these guys are now, women, guys are now 40, in their 40s, early 40s, which put, because we started 30 years ago, 1992. So they're like in their 40s, late 30s. And they have children of their own. And there are so many. We're thinking of having a Comic-Con for just people that named their sons Logan after Wolverine. And no, honest to God, it is unbelievable. And I've had them in my arms. I have them sending me pictures of them in the womb still, their ultrasounds.
Yeah.
To say we're going to, we're naming him Logan. And I actually went to they flew in from Montreal to meet me at a comic book store here about, 5 miles from my house. And to meet this wonderful little Logan, who was at that point 3 months old. And I held him and stuff. And it was just, it's like they become family. But they come up to the table and they say, first of all, I'd like, Mr. Dodd, thank you for making my childhood. Thank you for making my childhood. And a number of times, because my wife is there with me, she just shakes her head, and it's just, she still can't believe it. And this is like, thank you. You saved my life.
Wow.
Oh, of course I did. No, and they go on to explain how. And this one kid, he was probably 20, 30, and he had his daughter who was 7. And he was all dressed in black, as was his daughter. And he walked up and he had his claws on, and I had mine on, because I'm Wolverine. And he came up to the table and he just started his spiel, and he just said, I have to thank you. I could tell that he had memorized it, and I couldn't interrupt him because he was just looking straight sort of at me, but through my eyes. And just, I almost took my own life when I was growing up, because I was terribly bullied and teased and stuff, because I have autism, and this is my daughter, and she's autistic as well. And I was going to take my life, but I realized that Wolverine would never do that. And he has problems too. And all the other X-Men have their own problems when humanity doesn't accept them. And I just figured, aside from that, aside from that, I would have missed the Saturday Fox Kids X-Men episode. But I was seriously, I was so close to taking my own life. And I have to thank you for that, and for my wonderful daughter, because of what X-Men, I'm here, and so is my wonderful, beautiful daughter. And he finished, and I was like, oh, God. And so I took my claw off and put my hand out. And he looked, and he just took his off very slowly and put his hand out, and I shook his hand. And he just said, thank you so much, Mr. Dodd. I said, you can call me Logan. He said, thank you, Logan. And he turned around, and his daughter turned around. They sort of marched off, the two with their black capes. It was just such a great picture to see them both had a black cape on the back. This woman comes running over, and she's bawling. And she said, I can't believe what I just saw. That's my husband and my daughter. And he has never, with his autism, ever touched another human person's hand or anything besides myself ever in his life. But that's how much it meant to him. When you put your hand out, he could not refuse. And it must have taken a lot for him to do that. And I lost it. And it was just, I just hugged her. And then the tears started falling like crazy. So I said, you people get away from here. I have it. But not that intimate it gets, but not that often. But like everyone that comes up and says, thank you so much, Bud, for making my childhood. Love, all that stuff. It is unbelievable. And yeah, as you said, it just boosts you back up again. You know, because we're doing the new thing. Speaking of boosts you back up. But you know, I never expected it to be like this. This have such an impact on the people. It's just stunning.
Well, and you're gonna make this story's gonna make me start bawling. I've never heard a story like that before. That's incredible, absolutely
yeah,
incredible. And it is crazy as you when you mentioned you did the audition, you didn't really know much about the X-Men, and
none of us did.
now you've seen the impact that they've had, you know, since the comic book series, because comics are at their best when they're relatable. Even though it's about superheroes, they have elements that are relatable. Like, you know, with Spider-Man, he's like the everyday guy because he's still got to take care of his sick aunt. He's got to still pay his bills. With the X-Men, they're different. So people that, you know, might have autism or something that makes them feel excluded from what we call normal society, that gives them something to believe in. And it went to a whole different level when you guys brought them to life in what I consider to be, you know, one of, if not the best animated series based off of a comic book, because that introduced a whole, because I'm in that generation. I just turned 37, so I can remember watching X-Men, Spider-Man, and that I read the comics, but that really brought the characters to life. So
hugely.
Yeah, so that's wow, that's an amazing story, and I appreciate you sharing that with me.
And what also, Derek, that what the fans loved, because as I told you, I'd never read an X-Men comic in my life. I was busy working, you know, singing shows, whatever, touring with Joe Cocker. I toured with Joe Cocker with with our first
that's so cool.
with our first rock band. Yeah. So that just came out of the blue. Like for all of the X-Men, all of the voices are Canadian, and none of us, with the exception of Beast, had ever heard of the X-Men. And it was just, okay, let's go then. And it was like I just said, it's just been. And after the 5 years was over, 92 to 97, it was like, what do you want me to do now? What the hell? What am I supposed to do now? And it was, seriously, it was like, I missed him. I missed, you know, we became one, and it was just like, it was like my brother. They cut my arm, my right arm, left. Well, that's the left, Cal. Okay, that one too. And it was I missed him like ridiculously, and, you know. And eventually, with years, as you do, when you lose someone you love, you manage to get going and do something. You know, do something else, which I did. You know, other cartoon characters or roles and animated things, or and so when Disney came back for the last 2 years, when we were doing, before COVID again, when we were doing a lot of Comic Cons, 4 or 5 of us, all the X-Men, as many as we could get, and telling the people, you have to get to Disney, you have to keep, like, phone, text them, whatever, say that you want the series back, because they were hemming and hawing Disney. And finally, they pulled the plug and away we go. And we've done 10. They announced at San Diego Comic-Con this year that they were, no, what is this? Yeah, this year, that they were doing a second season, even though they haven't released the first one yet. So I'm in the second. I've done 2 episodes of the news of the second season. I just want them, would you release it, please? You know, because we're zipped, you know,
right,
under a non-disclosure.
But
it's
still
hard to do it at these Comic Cons.
Oh, I can imagine, because you can feel the excitement because of how big that show was, you know. And I was one of those people when they announced that the show was coming back. I was just like, "Are you serious? Like, it's actually happening." So no,
and it's picking up right where we left off in '97, with Professor X leaving on a jet plane. That's Peter, Paul, and Mary. I'm leaving on a. And we're all standing around in a semicircle crying.
Yeah. And that'll be great too, because it's literally, you know, those that are still wondering what happened, we're finally going to get to find out. So whenever it's released, I can't wait. It's going to be so fun.
And now these parents can watch it with their Logans, like, you know, who are this one kid. he, this is a great reaction for the fans. So his father had him in his right arm, and I'm here, and they're getting the pictures. And I had the claw here. There's, getting a selfie with me and the kids, probably 4, something like that. And we do the picture, and I said, "Oh no, one more." So they I said, "And count it in." So I got my arm around the father's on the other side, and I leaned. And they said 3, 2, 1, leaned in and kissed him, froze with a kiss on Logan. This is the child that was named Logan, on his cheek. And the father almost dropped the kid. He went, "Holy crap! Wolverine kissed my kid Logan. Wolverine kissed Wolverine. Logan kissed Logan."
I was about to say Logan kissed Logan.
What do I have to do? You want me to kiss you? I gotta kiss you. He said, "Oh my God, I can't believe this." It was like another wonderful moment. My God, he kissed my son.
That's incredible.
It's so much fun.
Absolutely. Yeah. And what's cool is, and it's also surprising to me is that you mentioned you had no voice acting experience before you did Wolverine. And you are the person who gave that character a voice, because we had seen, Wolverine in the comics, but never in like an animated form. So you are, to a lot of people, like, you are the Wolverine. But I do want to ask you, because years later we got the first X-Men movie. So what was your reaction when, it was made into live action and you saw, the final product?
With the very first movie, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with, Hugh Jackman, James Marsden.
Yeah. He was that was 2000, the year 2000, when they were shooting it in Toronto. And they wanted the 2 Wolverines to meet. So I went to this cocktail party, wine and cheese thing or something, in downtown Toronto. And I met, so Hugh came over. They said, "Okay, we'd like the 2 Wolverines to meet. Our Wolverine for 5 years, the only one that people can identify with Wolverines. It's the first voice Wolverine's had of any consequence." And Hugh is going to be our very first live action Wolverine. At first, I said, they introduced, he said, Cal Dodd, Hugh Jackman, Cal Dodd. I said, "A pleasure to meet you." And he said, "It's a pleasure to meet you, mate, but I'm sick and tired of listening to your voice." He was told, because the only reference that people had for Wolverine's voice was mine,
right, for
5 years. And here he is going to play the first, live action Wolverine. And so he was told to listen to my voice if he could, and just keep that in the back of his head somewhere. And he said, I have a lot of acting to do, mate. And there's a lot of, fighting and stuff. Like, the last thing I'm concerned about is trying to get, you have to lose it. Your Australian accent. By the way, you're a bit tall. So, building him up for his first role. I'm sick and tired of listening to your voice. So we had a great conversation and talked. And as he was going, he turned right and shook his hand, and he was walking away. And I said in Wolverine's voice, "Hey, Hugh." I said, yeah, mate. I said, and I won't use the words I actually said, which just knocked him on his face. He couldn't do it. I said, "Don't mess this up, bub." Don't mess this up, bub.
That's incredible.
He just like this to get out of here. So now he has a one-man show, as I'm sure the world knows. So he dances dancers and stuff, and he sings songs and stuff. And I haven't seen it yet, but friends of mine have. My agent in New York, that's where one of the shows was, and in LA. And they said he always spends 5 minutes, because the audience wants him to talk about Wolverine, of course. So he does that for 5 minutes, because he's there just to sing and dance. He's trying to get away of all that stuff. And he always took 2 minutes to speak about myself and the original Wolverine from the animated series, Cal Dodd. He gives a shout out and, polite applause and stuff. But I thought that was so cool of him to do that.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's incredible too. And he's been the longest standing X-Men. He's going to be in Deadpool 3, because it's going to be tough to see someone else in that role, because he's done it so well for so long.
Oh, I know. I know. And you know, another thing that the fans loved about our series is how true it was to the comic books.
Hmm.
They loved that. When they saw, I guess, when they saw the movie, this Phoenix, the Phoenix movie, whatever, like a lot of them just up and walked out. What I don't know what they did with it because I haven't seen that, but they just said that's not what is that? That didn't happen. What's And they a lot of people just got up and walked out. And
Yeah, they've tried it twice and they didn't get it right either time, because that's a story that you have to build to. Like, you can't do it over the span of one movie. You got to do it. It's got
yeah,
to take multiple installments, or if in like
yeah,
the animated series, it's got to take time to build to that iconic moment. You don't just throw it
yeah,
away in a single movie.
yeah. Ours was, I believe, 5 episodes,
That
like
I
five
believe so,
different.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that's what was great about the cartoon too, is that you had the time to flesh out the characters. You got to know Wolverine, you got to know Jubilee, you got to know Cyclops. You felt like you got to know the characters better than in the movies.
yeah. Oh God, yeah. And so this thing that was a very special thing that we were at in Minneapolis, um, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and it was called. They gave us a really nice jacket too. It was like they took this wonderful private club in Minneapolis, right on the main drag, a private club which is astounding, and they built it everything inside to look like the mansion from the X-Men, from
Oh
our
wow.
animated series. It was called the X-Men Experience, the Experience something experience. I'll remember it. Um, and they had it was so cool. They myself and Jubilee and Rogue were there as representing the X-Men, and we were in our own little room. And Chris Claremont was there, the unbelievable cartoon writer and stuff who created Wolverine. He was in the room beside us, and Larry and was there, and Eric and Julia Leewald. Um, a good representation, but everything. It was like the kids. There were only 500 people invited. Were going to school. They actually went to school in this weekend, and I got a degree too. We all got a graduation degree at the end of the thing, and they had like a gym class out in the front on the front lawn. The teacher's name was Professor Logan. Oh yeah, and I came out just to bust it, that disrupt because I disrupt everything as you know Wolverine does. I just went out and stood at them, and there's about 20 of them doing these like actual legit up and down, and I waited because I watched this one kid, and he's taking a break for a second, and he said, "Hey, Logan." They all looked around, they all freaked out, and he said, "He's not doing it right." I pointed at this kid. Well, they just laughed their heads off. But so that, and the first night we got there, there was a meet and greet. So it went from 8 till 10. Um, all of us were there, and whoever paid for that evening, there was different prices for the people that were attending. And there's this one room called Logan's bedroom, and in it is that the meme. I couldn't believe it. They did the meme. That's the famous meme that's out now with Wolverine and lying in bed. And so I couldn't. And so I looked in, and there's beer cans on the floor, scrunched into and two by his bedside, and the picture of Cyclops and Jean. And I said, "Oh, I have to do this." And so there were cameramen and photographers, not photographers, yeah, photographers and video guys. When they heard Wolverine's up lying on the bed, and I recreated the meme. I put the picture in my hand, and I'm lying on the bed with this jacket on, etc., and just taking my claw over Cyclops' face. And they should have heard them. They were just screaming with laughter, and like they said, "This is just massive. This is cool, like unbelievable." So that kind of stuff was fun. What else they had? The graduation ceremony, and they released like 300 out on the front door of this place, of the
Oh
mansion
wow.
that they recreated. And Jubilee and I were there with them, and they had this drone going up and down, and everyone was watching it. I never figured out what they were doing. I just followed the instructions. Um, but it was what a unique weekend, and they had like a night of a party on Saturday night where they had karaoke sort of thing, and someone was playing Sparkler, the X-Men, the character Sparkler, who
Hmm.
was singing, and she was the lead, the hostess of the karaoke thing, which I couldn't stomach after a while. Karaoke is just like, oh my gosh, I gotta leave. But what a wonderful, unique experience that was. Yeah,
Well,
and it was.
it's so cool when conventions will do things like that. Like you said, the X-Men experience where you almost feel like you're in the show. You know,
Yeah,
that's
that's
and you can do things, you know, like meet and greets at your cons and whatnot, but when, you know, conventions really go all out like that to kind of
yeah,
go the extra mile, it makes it
yeah.
really worth it. And I saw the picture you're talking about where you recreated the meme. I couldn't believe you did that.
Oh,
I
oh,
almost fell off the couch laughing when I saw it. I'm like, that is so cool because, you
oh
know,
yeah.
I love that you embrace the role of Wolverine, you know, because there are
Oh
actors
God,
that
yeah.
they'll like, yeah, they'll acknowledge that they've done something, but they don't, I don't want to say they don't appreciate it, but they don't get into it like I've seen you do, which is
Oh, and I,
incredible.
and I, yeah. Thank you. And I have a wonderful time at the panels. I was scared crapless at what the first panel I had to do because I had no idea what's what do I what if they don't what if no one comes, what if no one asks questions. Well, that's another story, but it's just I literally, and there's microphones, and they make the mistake of leaving them all on the microphones. If you used to like turn them all off if you weren't being asked a question, they one at a time. That was only in LA though. There was someone back there like an engineer who just doused. But now they just, of course, which it should, because I'm like I just raise crap whenever I can. I just butt in on people like Rogue if she's telling a really serious story or something, and I sense that she's not really. That's not what happened. Why do you always lie and build something? The crowd, they go nuts. They just go crazy. Says, "Oh, Logan," and it's just wonderful. The Jubilee's beside me, and I always protect her. It was just a lot of fun to be able to bounce in when they're talking about something. To like, who told you that? You know? And the audience just loves it because, oh, listen, he's at it again. And I love that because
Yeah, no,
Wolverine is like so quiet and so into himself. He rarely gets a chance to really express himself so wonderfully like that.
absolutely. There is
Yeah.
one other role as we start to wrap up here that I've got to ask you about. You also were the voice of Slappy in Goosebumps, which
Yes, I was.
I'm not going to lie. So, those books as a child terrified me. So, when I saw that character specifically come to life, it scared me even more. So, how was that bringing that character to life?
And that happened so quickly. It just the guy said, "Would you could you come and do this voice with a slappy, same sort of thing?" And okay, whoever he is, and said, Goosebumps. And I said, okay. And so they showed me the picture and the video, and I said, okay. And I think might have played me. I'm not sure though. I said, well, what does he sound like? And I don't know whether they might have played me the actual puppeteer's um, voice. I really can't remember, Derek, what they did for me, but I just come up with this. Really, he said he'd be a highish voice, so I came up with that voice. And when the kids again now when the kids come, I have slappy pictures and stuff at the desk now. And at one of the it was in Detroit, Grand Rapids, Michigan. The showrunner, the guy that owns it, came down to my table and he saw those two pictures of Slappy. And he said, "You see these two pictures here?" Because I was all about Wolverine. I said, "Yeah." He said, "Take those two pictures. Try and find a Slappy doll, like the thing, actual life, whatever size he was. Get that." He said, "And I know all the top horror shows. I can get you into any of them. You just tell me if you're what I said. You take those two pictures and that Slappy thing, you will kill at horror cons at comic." And I said, "What?" He said, "He is huge in horror stuff now." And when I do the voice for kids, some of the girls just giggle. They can't. They just their jaws open. One girl, it was with her mom, and I didn't. I let her go. She said her mom said she loves Slappy for the thing, and I let it go for 2 minutes, and I was doing Wolverine over here, and I turned, and then they know the series, these kids, and she was about 12, And I just turned to her and I said,
Wasn't very nice of you to throw me in the sewer like that, was it, Sarah?
"What's it, Sarah?" Because I knew her voice. I knew her name.
Wasn't very nice of you to throw me in the sewer like that, was it, Sarah?
She went, and she started shaking, and I said, "Oh my, what have I done?" I said,
Don't you get it yet?
and I wouldn't lay up on her.
You said the magic words. Rama lama dama dama ding dong.
And she went, and she ran into her mom's arms, and she's shaking. And then she turned around. Her mom, I said, what's she all right? She said, no, she just can't believe it. And then she couldn't, when she turned around, she was laughing so hard. She made me like, oh, good, thank God. I thought I'd scared the shit out of poop. And they just, all to every one of them, as soon as I get into that voice, because they don't expect it, and it just comes out really quickly, and they just go. But the first time I did, someone come up to my table, because I bring my Bluetooth speaker and I play the X-Men theme song,
which is amazing, by the way.
Oh, no kidding. And then I have because on the Goosebumps TV show, a friend of mine, Jack Lenz, who did it, I did it at his studio. He wrote the music for the theme and for the rest of the show and stuff. And it's a great theme. And I did I actually did some dog barks in the thing, because they woo, 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 like the thing. Blink, 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 and the way it starts out, and then in the middle of it, there's like, beware, you're in for a scare, and I did that voice too. And when they find that out, they're going like, what? And so I play that when they're there at the table, and when they hear it, they just, wow, it's wonderful to watch their faces. It just makes my heart smile. They're just all wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this has been incredible to hear, not just like how you got the role of Wolverine, but the impact that it continues to have, to this day. It's really amazing. And I did want to ask, so in closing, do you have a website or social media that you'd like to plug so the viewers and listeners can follow you?
Yeah, Cal Dodd, CalDodd.com. Now on that's my web page. On that are it's full of neat stuff. So it starts off with voiceovers that I did, of course, and I got heavily into voiceovers after this role, of course. And so it's like all the voiceovers I did, like actual talking. And then the next one is jingles, some of the famous jingles that I did. And then I released this. I did a CD 10 years ago, and the keyboard player was one of the world's best B3 organ player and piano player, Doug Riley, and he died about a year after we did the CD. But it's phenomenal. So there's a little cut of every of the 13 songs on the CD. And then there's all the animation, Wolverine. So there's Wolverine, and then there's that.
Wasn't very nice of you to tell me this.
A whole section with, of Slappy and other cartoons that I've done with totally different voices, and some of them I really liked. There's a cartoon called King, and he kind of talked with her. He had a guava-y voice, but he had that speech problem where everything was, "Those fuegos, go get those fuegos. I want them here right now." And he was a lot of fun. But his name was Bob Wire because he was barbed wire. And it's a really interesting website, and I think I like it. So caldodd.com, and they can reach me there.
Fantastic. And I'll put a link in the show notes as well, so people can click on that also. So
okay.
Yeah.
Thank
awesome.
you, Derek.
Well, Cal, this has been an honor. Thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me.
Oh, I loved every minute of it. Thank you so much, Derek.